Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Our audio versions of the show are also available on Anchor, so you'll pick them up wherever you pick up your audio podcasts. And joining me tonight for a very special episode, all the way from Canada, no less, Darren Wearmouth. Darren, how are you, my man?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Good, not a bother at all. So tonight we're going to talk books. We're going to talk your passion, Sunderland. So a very, very interesting combination. Let's start with the books. How did the whole writing of books and all that stuff come about?
Well, I always, I mean, I love football, but I love fiction as well. I read since I was a kid, and I worked on the road a lot, so I had a lot of time in B&Bs and hotels, and I just started doing it. I didn't have any idea. I thought it was going to go nowhere. It just something to keep me busy, and then self-publishing come along. Like no agents or publishers wanted anything to do with me, and I put it out on Amazon. I know, shit my pants, to be fair, but it did really well, and all of a sudden these people wanted to know me, and that's pretty much where it started. And then, as you probably know, I've ended up writing books with James Murray from Impractical Jokers, and we made the Times #1 bestseller list, and it all went from there. So it's been a bit strange, but I don't regret it for a minute.
Absolutely. So tell us, what's the process? Like if you take a book, say like Awakened, or like what's the process in that? How does it come about from, say concept all the way through to holding the physical book, if you like?
Well, I'll use Don't Move for an example. Like it's a bit different with Awakened because the manuscript was already there when James called me. We wanted someone to work together on the editing process.
Okay.
But with Don't Move, come up with an idea and a rough storyline. You think, okay, there's going to be a prehistoric creature in the forest that's going to stalk down loads of humans, and the webs glow in the dark, and you can only see them under UV light. And then you build the story and the characters around it. We write it. It goes to an agent. They pitch it to publishers. They come back and say, yeah, okay, we want it. And then you have to go through their editing process where they make changes and cover creation. And once all of that's done, you get your final product. And I don't know, it probably, from the outside in, it probably seems like a very, I'm not sitting by a lake, like looking out, musing and all this kind of stuff. It's not like that. Yeah. I wrote Don't Move in a basement bedroom in the Canadian winter. So, it's not as romantic as what everyone seems. It's a little bit more technical, but I enjoy it anyway.
Yeah. And what length of time would the process be? Would you tend to work singly on a project, or would you have a number of things going on at any one time?
I think when I do my own stuff, it's a bit faster. Where when I'm doing it with someone else, like when I'm co-writing with James, because we're going back and forward and sharing ideas and going over each other's chapters, it takes a little bit longer. For me to produce a book, I would say it was about 3 months.
God, that's, to me, I can't even fathom that, actually writing a whole book in 3 months. Like, it's amazing. Like, what about the relationship with James? How did that come about?
Well, he had this manuscript, and he'd written it before he'd been on TV, and he was looking for someone to go through the editorial process with him because Harper Voyager wanted to publish it. Because he didn't have time. He's got 3 TV shows. He's a busy man. And so I got an email from his agent one day, and we spoke and he's a very down-to-earth, nice guy. And I think I'd had a couple of cans at the time, but I didn't say anything. And but it was weird seeing someone you'd seen on TV before, just talking to him. And we clicked because we liked a lot of the same stuff. We like a lot of horror movies and that kind of science fiction, Alien, the Terminator movies, all that kind of stuff. See, I'm saying movies now instead of films. That's what you get from living over this side of the pond. Ever since then, we've gone back and forward. I've spent a lot of his time at his apartment writing. And there was a very good Irish pub over the road from where he lived called the Beekman, which is sadly closed down in the last few weeks. But I mean, that was my home from home, because you could go in there and get a pint. And yeah, now he's moved out, and we've gone on holiday together. And I was in his bridal party, and he's the godfather of my little daughter now. So I mean, we've been good friends for over 5 years.
It's excellent. It's amazing, isn't it? That it just comes about like that and just flourishes into so much more, you know.
Yeah,
So let's talk about the up and coming book, the Stowaway. When I read the kind of the synopsis, the summary on it, I got the feeling of a kind of a Cape Fear on a cruise ship kind of feel to it. So I was intrigued by it because Cape Fear would be one of my all-time favorite movies, you know. Tell
yeah.
us about the Stowaway.
Yeah, firstly, I love Cape Fear as well. It's just got great scenes. I don't know why, but I just love when Robert De Niro's in the cinema just smoking that cigar, laughing, you know, in front of them. The Stowaway, it was a similar idea. James it was his seed of an idea. What if like mass murder started to happen regularly on a Atlantic cruise right in the middle, where you're thousands of miles from Europe, thousands of miles from the United States, and it'll take a day or two for anyone to get out to you, and people started dropping like flies. I mean, it would be quite a frightening experience. But then we started to delve into it a little bit more and think of a plot and what the motivation would be behind that and everything. And it just so happens that we come up with there's a trial for a mass murderer, and he's a child murderer, and he's got a particularly gruesome way of his signature, his calling card is that I don't want to give too much away, but he leaves the dead child dressed in a pair of clothes that don't fit very well, but they happen to be the clothes of the next victim, who isn't dead yet. He's just stolen them. Yeah, a woman stands trial. There's too much circumstantial evidence for the guy who's standing accused, and he goes free. 2 years later, she's on a cruise, and people start dying again, and the mode of murder is exactly the same. So she's wondering if it's the same guy, if it's a copycat stalking her, someone who like hates her from the trial, or is she losing her mind? And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. Lots of layers and all too. It's really really good. Like, sounds excellent. So let's move on to the other love, Sunderland Football Club. Talk to me about how the love for Sunderland came about, when it all started.
Well, it's funny. I was born in York, so I'm from Yorkshire, but all my family's from the northeast, around that way, mainly Durham. My dad is a Sunderland fan. My granddad was, and I didn't really get a choice when I was a kid. I was just I was taken to Roker Park, where, you know, as soon as I could walk, and I remember the 90 minutes back then seemed to last for 4 days, and when the wind was blowing in from the sea and it was freezing, and I had a thin coat on, but and the Bovril would burn your lips off because it was like piping hot. Yeah. But I don't know, you fall in love with those times, don't you, when you first start seeing football, and the sights, the sounds, and the smells, and which, you know, you later identify as beer farts and stuff, but you don't know at the time when you're a kid. Yeah. I was just into it, you know, like any kid. I was obsessed with it. I like football more than anything, more than music, more than girls, more than anything. And I was just into it. And I've been to hundreds of games now. I used to be a season ticket holder. I still watch every single game online. And before the pandemic, I would fly over and see games too.
Excellent. And what would be, I mean, it was the Black Cats really, or you'd be shown the door, isn't it? It's like, that's the kind of family tradition that it was. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds fantastic. So what was your feeling then? Obviously, Peter Reid at that time came in and kind of set Sunderland on their way. And how was your feeling then? What's your memories back then with Peter?
Yeah, I mean, that's really good, because he came in after a couple of really terrible managers. Mick Buxton, we were languishing. In fact, he come in and saved us from relegation with the last few games. And I remember I went to the first game. I went to the first game of the season, and I think we were playing Leicester City. and we lost 2-1 at home. And I said to my dad, "What do you think?" And he said, "Oh, same old shit." And we walked out. And then, you know, as the season went on and we went on that unbeaten run and we beat Millwall, I think it was 6-0 to go to the top of the table. And then the Cheer Up Reid, Peter Reid song come out, and everyone was playing it in the cars and singing it in the pubs before the game and everything. And we were all swept up in it. That season, I think it's funny you should mention that season, because if I look back on my whole time of supporting the club, that season was the most magical for me, because we hadn't been in the Premier League before. We were relegated in 91, just before it all started. Yeah. So you get to see all this glitz and glamour and the new players coming in. I think people like Klinsmann were around then, and Chelsea started to pick up all of their players, Hullett and whatnot. And I just wanted this to be a part of it. And yeah, it was special getting there, especially, you know, I remember having tears in my eyes when we were announced. In fact, we didn't even play when our promotion was announced. I think it was Derby and Crystal Palace chasing us, but because they still had to play each other, neither of them could both catch us, you know, because it was impossible for them both to get maximum points. Yeah. And I remember looking at the TV, I was just ironing my shirt because we were going to a game the next day. It was Stoke at home. And it said, I think Des Lynam said it on TV, and I went in the front room just staring at it going, I can't fucking believe it. Then all of a sudden I smelled the burning. It was my shirt on the ironing board.
The iron was still on it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it was it was a very emotional moment. I remember, you know, the team ran up to Z-Cars that day. You know, I think Everton do as well, and it's like, welcome to the Premiership's newest team and everything. We come out, and it was good just to finally know that we got there. All the fun in the Premier League for me is getting there. When you get there, it's usually a disaster for Sunderland.
Yeah. What was the feeling moving from Roker to the Stadium of Light?
You know, you'll probably get this too. I thought, I don't know. I thought I missed Roker Park a lot more than what I actually did. And I was very sad when we left it. I went to the final league game. It was 3-0 at home against Everton, so at least we won. I mean, there was an exhibition game after that, a 1-0 home win to Liverpool. But I think once I got in there and we could all see that we could actually get a beer around it, and the facility, and it was spacious, and everyone had a good view. And we started off playing well there. I mean, we started off back in the Championship, because obviously Sunderland being Sunderland, we got relegated the season before we moved in. I think everybody quickly got used to it because it was so good. It was so good to what we were used to. And on top of that, we got a huge capacity boost as well, because I can't remember which report it was. It might have been the Taylor report or something. Our capacity at Roker Park was reduced to 23,000, which we sold out every week in the Premier League. Yeah. But most of Roker Park was standing, and that was the problem. So we had to do something, and you couldn't really expand. So we had to move. And when we got in there, and we had I think it started off at 42,000 all seater. It was consequently expanded. Everyone liked it, you know, and Status Quo opened up, you know, the first game before we played Ajax. Yeah. It was good.
Absolutely brilliant. It was a beautiful stadium as well at the time. I remember when they opened it was just, I remember Sky Sports back then. It was really at the pinnacle of Sky Sports coming in and boosting the Premier League and, you know, really creating football stars and this real. I always remember like the build-ups to the Monday Night Football, and, you know, they'd have like the aerial views of the stadium. And I always remember on the Monday Night Football, you'd have an aerial view of the stadium and it just looked outstanding. There really was the Stadium of Light, like, you know, I mean, for all intents and purposes in the distance, it looked like a mothership. It was incredible.
Yeah. No, that was it. You're totally right, and that was exactly what I was talking about before, about wanting to get there, because I saw how it was all exploding, and it was all like seeing razzmatazz and everything, and yeah, it was good. It was good to finally get there. And when we did get there, our first game back, we lost 4-0 to Chelsea. But there you go.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong. That's not too bad. You know what I mean? There's many a good team has lost 4-0 to Chelsea. The Drummerville consortium came in. What was you thinking around that time? I mean, it must have sounded, in terms of the plan, must have looked pretty good with the investment and everything that was going on. I mean, they came in with the takeover, you know, and off Sunderland went running. What was you thinking at that time?
Well, I mean, we'd just been down. we'd just been relegated at one of our lowest points totals, and it was fairly depressing. And I couldn't, before I heard of Drummerville, I didn't know what was going to happen to us. I feared the worst because I mean, Bob Murray, and he's a very divisive figure at Sunderland, but and to his credit, he did move us to a new stadium, and he tried with Reid. He tried, you know, we did our budget, but it all ran out of gas and it went downhill. And I feared would be like a Sheffield Wednesday or a Sheffield United or someone like that, you know, sink down 2 or 3 divisions. I mean, which we have now, we didn't at the time. But when Quinny said he wanted to come in, I mean, everyone knows now Quinn loves Sunderland and his heart's there. And if he wanted to put a consortium together, everyone backed him, everyone trusted it. And we were all ready to give it a go. And he come in as, I don't know if you remember, but he was manager for a few games.
Yeah.
When the Drummerville consortium started. And I think he lost 3 out of 3. And then it was announced, I think it was announced on Monday Night Football for some other team that Roy Keane was going to become our manager. And I remember texting my mate saying, well, I mean, what do you think of this? I mean, because it was totally out left field, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I mean, I don't know. I suppose it could be good. I said, well, I mean, they need their asses kicking and he's the man to do that. And then on Quinny's last game, Roy Keane was in the stands and we beat West Brom 2-0. So at least, you know, he went out on a high in his short managerial career. But I think we were all very, very positive about the whole thing. And the summer after, I actually toured Ireland. I went over with Sunderland and a few of my mates, and we went to Daly Mount Park to see Sunderland Bohemians, and I went to Turner's Cross to see us play Cork, which was where we got David Mailer. I think he was playing for Cork that day, and he signed for us afterwards. But yeah, that I would say that was my second favourite season. You know, going up under Roy Keane with Drummerville.
Yeah.
The 2 promotion seasons are the best. That was the second best one. It was immense in so many different ways, and he brought like a discipline and a focus to the club that I hadn't seen for a good few years since Reid, you know, started on a high. But I mean, we all know with Reid there was a drinking culture there, and you know, in the modern day Premier League, it can't, you know, it all got away from him.
Yeah,
like he wasn't like.
I remember the Sunderland win, the 2-1 win over Newcastle. I'm sure you remember that one.
Yeah, I do.
That cost Ruud Gullit his job. I mean, that must have felt certainly satisfying, did it?
Oh, it's very satisfying because Shearer missed a penalty in it too. But I mean, I remember that because I only got to see it on TV because it was an away game. We had limited tickets. We only got 850 tickets for that game. And I remember seeing Shearer sitting in the dugout with his bottom lip out. Ruud Gullit standing there in the driving rain, and the conditions weren't good, but we beat him 2-1. It was a Quinny header, and then Phillips like lobbed the keeper right from the corner. And I remember Kevin Ball trying to he did a tackle in like pretty much near the halfway line in injury time or very late in the game, and it flew back towards our own net over Tommy Sorensen's head and bounced off the bar. You know, we nearly cocked it up, but yeah, that was very, very satisfying, that game.
Yeah,
very satisfying. I think it was the first time we've beaten him in quite a while.
Yeah, I'd say you can't say enough good things about Kevin Phillips, really, can you? I mean, what a player he was. 30 goals that season, won the boot, the Euro, what they called it, was the Golden European Boot or something back then, or something like that they called it.
Yeah, I think he's the last Englishman to win it.
Yeah, but phenomenal player, and I always remember his link-up play with Quinny as well. Like he was always in the right place at the right time for those good knockdowns off Quinn and stuff like that. You know, they just had a synergy there between them that was at times unplayable. You know, but Phillips, what a player he was.
He could, the best thing about him is he could score any type of goal. Like he was great in the air for his size. He could score outside the box. He could get in the predator. He could score any type of goal. It's a funny thing how he developed late, but I think Quinny he doesn't get enough credit for how skillful he was with his feet. I mean, yeah, he was good in the air, but he had a great touch for a big man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a Liverpool fan. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you formally for Jordan Henderson. um, who came up from Sunderland, tough time.
Yeah, I
Didn't
mean,
fit in straight away.
yeah, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for having that beach ball landing on the pitch.
Yeah. Oh God, remember that? God, you wouldn't get away with it now. It'd be VAR.
I know, yeah, but
or maybe you would with VAR at the moment.
Yeah,
yeah. What's your feeling on Jordan? I mean,
he was a good player for Sunderland. I mean, he had a great engine. I mean, he's not. He was never going to be like a Gerrard or anything like that. He doesn't contribute in that way with the goals. I mean, he does a little bit. My feeling is, I always thought he could play at a better level in Sunderland, but I didn't want him to go. But when he did, he went and he wished us all the best. And I think all the Sunderland fans were pretty proud of him because he's a homegrown boy. When he like lifted those trophies, I think that's there's no bitterness there or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that he's done well, and I'm glad that people can appreciate him for the strengths that he's got, because I'm not sure they were quite understood when he first moved there.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we're back to Sunderland. We get into this merry-go-round of managers, to say the least. No less, Quinn, Short replaces Quinn as chairman. Quinn becomes director of international development. But we get Steve Bruce, Martin O'Neill, Paolo Di Canio, and then all that stuff that evolved then with David Miliband and stuff like that at the time. They were crazy times.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but I mean, Short, I mean, he I mean, I don't know if he was badly advised at the end, but I mean, we did spend money on transfers. I mean, like even Moyes, you look at, I think the money together, 20 million together he spent for Papi Digilabodji and Didier Ndong. But yeah, when you go back to them, like all the fans at the time had no problem when each one of these were appointed. I remember I went to, with a couple of mates, went to the Amsterdam tournament the summer that Steve Bruce was appointed. Played Atletico Madrid, and I mean, I've got to see, it was our chance to see us in Europe. So we went over there, and it was a good laugh, but no one complained. Steve Bruce did all right. He wasn't hounded out because he was a Geordie that he claimed. He was hounded out because of poor team performances, and we were slowly getting worse and worse. It was the second season in a row we had horrendous unbeaten runs, and we were like fourth bottom. So I understood why he went at the time. Martin O'Neill, again, he come in and he give everyone a lift. And he was very good tactically against people like Swansea and everything, but there was a feeling around that his tactics were a little bit old-fashioned. In the modern game and everything, you needed a little bit more than that. And I think he was a lovely guy. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I
think. I mean, we'll never know. I mean, he just comes across as that. But I don't know. I just think there was something, and a few managers have alluded to this. There was something rotten at Sunderland during those years, and I don't know if it was through procurement, who was calling the shots, how the budgets were being handed out, who could get what, but things only ever seem to work in a short term. It's like that new manager boost, and as soon as that wears off after a season,
yeah,
they were sacked, and then they bring another man in, another, and it was a revolving door. And I thought we'd finally seen an end to it when we got Sam Allardyce in, because he seemed to, his passion and drive. And but Sunderland fans don't mind if people give 100% and you lose. I think what we have a problem with is if you don't give 100%. And a lot of the signings we were getting in didn't seem to give a shit about the club. And it was a very sad, timid end to our Premiership. And David Moyes said he was in a relegation battle like 3 weeks into the season. Who says that and gives the players any kind of confidence?
Yeah, it's a bit early to be making a call like that. Talk about Gus Poyet when he came in, got you to a League Cup final. Talking about, I mean, if you think the madness of Paolo Di Canio, I mean, Gus Poyet, here's another man who wears his heart on his sleeve big time.
Yeah, I mean, Di Canio was a funny one, wasn't he? And again, we'll always love him for winning that derby 3-0 away and running along and skidding on his knees in a suits on the touchlines. Poyet come in, and yeah, I mean, again, he got us out of an amazing run to save us. I'm sure we were. I'm not entirely. I've asked a few fans about this, but like I didn't know if people, other clubs around the Premier League, were getting sick of us. You know, just like surviving by the skin of our teeth for 3 or 4 seasons. But I always knew it would end. You know, your luck would run out. You can't just keep surviving there. You either have to move up or you're going to go down. And we weren't moving up. So Poyet came in, and we had that amazing survival season, and we got to the League Cup final. And I actually thought we had a great chance. We went 1-0 up for Man City, and then Barini went clear through just before the stroke of half time. Company was chasing him down. And I just thought, just tap the ball ahead, go down, we'll get a penalty, he'll get a red card, 2-0, we'll lift in the cup.
Yeah.
But Company slid in, he got his toe to the ball. Barini went down like a sack of shit anyway. And and then he's I mean, it went to 3-1, then Fletcher missed an easy chance. But it was. I was pleased. Actually, I was pleased to get there. But one of the most pleasing things of the whole cup run, which you'll probably like being a Liverpool fan, was beating Manchester United at Old Trafford on penalties.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. So then, sort of, we kind of move. I mean, Pickford obviously moves off to Everton. Simon Grayson comes in, and then we get the whole Sunderland Till I Die, which I thought was an absolute. I really, really enjoyed the documentary side of it and stuff like that. It accelerated my distaste for Jack Rodwell as a player, because I mean, it was just disgusting what he did, like, you know what I mean? And of course, like, the documentary series did him no favors at all. It was terrible, like, what was your thinking at that time? Obviously Chris Coleman and all came in on the documentary, and I mean, I look at Sunderland, and to me, Sunderland have a kind of a setup. I say it sometimes even, I don't know how it took so long for Leeds to get back into the Premiership, but there's certain teams out there that I always associate with the Premier League, and Sunderland would be one of those teams. They have the stadium, they have the setup, they have the fan base without a shadow of a doubt. But just it doesn't just seem to all come together. What was you thinking?
I mean, yeah, I mean, the Sunderland Till I Die thing, it was hard for me to watch, being a Sunderland fan. There was Premier Passions, that was another one out in 97, 98, but the Sunderland to Die, I mean, I kind of feel sorry for Chris Coleman. He's like a bit of a David Brent type character. I mean, he seems like a lovely guy, and he likes all the staff and everything like that, but he just doesn't seem good at his job. And Aidan McGeady has alluded to it afterwards, like, he's getting instructions, and he was like, what? He's just telling everyone to try hard, and you need more than that. Yeah. You can. I think he got away with it at international level because you've got international players. But when you're kind of on an 11 playing field, or you've got players who aren't necessarily as good, and you need to get them playing, you can't just say that to them. Yeah. It was. I don't know. I mean, I felt sorry for him because even though we went down, he's I'll stay, and if there's a takeover, and I'll be here, and you kind of admire that loyalty, and he wants to dig in and everything like that, but I just didn't see it, and Grayson as well, what a mistake he was. The first thing he come in, and he made the pitch dimension smaller, and he was saying it as if he was some kind of like Pep Guardiola genius. We'll make the pitch directions, get, and all that does is he just makes it more of a scrambling kick fest. And I mean, if you want to assemble a good team, you want a lot of space to play in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the opposite of and a fit team. If you fit, and you've got the legs, you're good players, and you can tie people out by passing it around them and moving them around the pitch. And he didn't seem to have any of that, and some of his signings were baffling. I mean, his goalkeepers were terrible. I don't know if you got the fellow from Blackburn, Steele, who was. We had a friendly against Celtic, and he was just. There's no other word for it. He was just shit. And then he got in Lee Camp, who Lee Campy. I thought it was Danny Baker in goal when he first come out.
Yeah, I remember looking at the documentary, and it just focused so much on all these goalkeeping mistakes. And it sort of, it nearly gave the impression that there was nearly no other issues. It was just, got to resolve this goalkeeping issue, you know what I mean? And it was like, it was strange. But what I did enjoy about the documentary, looking at the background stuff and the insight that it gave you, it really did give an impression that the club, has all the mechanisms there and everything that should be there to be a big club and be potentially back in the Premier League. I mean, you often hear sometimes that, like, how do clubs survive? Because they're operating kind of at a Premier League or a Championship level, but they might be in League One or League Two. And I was looking at that, but it's interesting. But I mean, I loved when Sunderland was in the Premier League. I mean, even this year, like, I'm really enjoying Leeds being back in the Premier League, even though I'm a Liverpool fan. I appreciate good football, and I do believe there is teams out there that do belong in the Premier League, and there's teams out there that should never be in the Premier League.
I know what you're saying. Like, but on the flip side, I would say that nobody has a God-given right to be there, and whoever's there, probably deserves to be there. Because I mean, you look at teams like Bournemouth and everything, and I went down, and actually, I think that was our first win under Moyes, away in October, and Anichebe got and Defoe got one. And you look around the stadium, and it was tiny, and Eddie Howe had been playing some good stuff at the time, and you just think, on the balance of things, the money we've spent and our infrastructure and everything like that, why are these way ahead of us? I didn't get it. You don't, do you? It just must be mismanagement from top to bottom. But I know what you're saying, and part of it is I can't wait to get back to the Championship right now.
Yeah.
Partly because it's close to the Premier League, but there's some big teams down in the Championship nowadays. Go and play them. I mean, obviously we'd have the game against Borough, and Derby are down there as well, and Forest, and some big old Sheffield Wednesday, if they don't go down, some big old traditional teams there.
Yeah. I've often said to people at times, on the face of it, when you look at the Premier League, there's going to be potentially 3 or 4 teams that might go push on to do it. Obviously, you get the odd one like Blackburn or Leicester that come through and end up winning it. But when you look at the Championship, it's so competitive. There's so many games. It's a totally different kettle of fish, and such a difficult league to win. Like, it's like, even when you see at the top, these teams, they're constantly swapping first and second, third all the time. And there's so many games, often twice a week you're playing. So sometimes every week there's nearly 6 points up for grabs, you know what I mean? And it's just, you can see it with Leeds. Look at how long it took Leeds to climb back out of it after what happened to them and stuff like that. It's such a competitive league. Like,
it is. In my younger day, I never used to see the difference as much because we'd spent more time in the Premier League. But then after we'd been out of it 10 years and you come back, to me, the difference was stark. I mean, the refereeing, I know people complain about the refereeing in the Premier League, but Jesus, in the Championship, it's terrible. I mean, you lose points from bad decisions. It's a lot more physical in teams of, you can get bullied, where it's a little bit harder to do that in the Premier League. Because we had quite a short team and we were just getting out muscled everywhere. The boxes get bombarded a lot more as well. And as you say, I mean, because it is more physical and it's 46 games and everything, you need a young fit squad. You can't get away with it with all these old knackers that we had in our team at the time. So it is competitive, and it is different to the Premier League. You do need different types of players to get out of there. But the sad thing is, it isn't always the players who get you there that they'll keep in the Premier League, which, I mean, it seems unfair, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, you really have to nearly take a punt, don't you, and sort of, take a risk on the money you're going to earn off being in the Premier League and push it in there nearly in advance to cement you in there nearly,
Yeah.
Couple of questions for you. Favorite player?
What, of all time?
Of all time, or favorite Sunderland player, whichever. Or both.
My favorite players are obviously. I mean, when I was a young boy, like young teenager and everything, it was Marco Gabbiadini. I mean, Quinny and Phillips, are up there, but I won't be able to pick the two. But probably Gabbiadini, because I was as a young kid, and the more your idols, then aren't there, than just like favorite players. So he's not the best player, but he was my favorite player.
Yeah. Favorite goal.
I'd say Jermaine Defoe against Newcastle. I don't know if you remember it, but it dropped on his. It was a direct long ball up and a header down to him, and he caught it on the volley outside the box, and it just went straight into the top right corner, and we won 1-0.
What a player, Jermaine Defoe! Yeah, what a player. Most memorable football moment.
I would have to say Mickey Gray missing that penalty at Wembley against Charlton in '98. I was there, and my hangover had already started kicking in because it went into extra time and penalties. And that was just the cherry on the cake.
Excellent. Here's always a good one I like to ask. If you could have dinner with anyone, alive or deceased, doesn't have to be football related, anybody, who would it be?
Oh, geez. Dinner with anyone? Probably Woody Harrelson, because he seems like a good laugh, and I like his films.
Absolute great choice. Great choice.
Who would you have dinner with?
God, I don't know. It'd have to be someone like, I suppose in football in terms, it'd have to be someone like Kenny Dalglish, or one of the boys from back then. I'd say probably Shankly or Bob Paisley, I'd say, would be amazing in terms of football. In terms of, say, Hollywood or something like that, probably someone like Arnie or Stallone. I grew up on those action kind of movies and stuff like that, so one of those two boys, I'd say, would be fairly interesting to have dinner with. I'd say with Woody Harrelson, it wouldn't just end up with dinner. I'd say that would end up being like an all-weekend bender craziness. I'd say, you know what I mean?
That's why I picked it.
Yeah, it's a good choice. Yeah. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It feels like it's after flown by, but plenty there. Tell our viewers and our listeners where can they find yourself and the books and all that kind of stuff.
I'm on Twitter at Darren Wearmouth. That's DARREN WEARMOUTH, and same on Facebook and Instagram. It's all the same stuff. You can find more about me in the books there. And it's been a pleasure talking to you anyway. It's good reminiscing. Yeah, it's always good reminiscing about football.
Absolutely.
Good and bad. That's why we love it though, isn't it? Because all those lows make the highs so much sweeter.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm 30. I was 30 years waiting. Highs and lows, loads and lows and one high.
The last time the Sunderland won the league, like the referees were wearing top hats. So I've been waiting. My dad's been waiting. My granddad was waiting.
Yeah, one of the lads in on the network that we do there, he said he had a look at your Twitter there, and he's dying to get you on it. He does a show on our network called The Flaming Puck, because you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. He's a Calgary Flames fan, and he said he'd love to get you on the show to have a chat about ice hockey and about the books and stuff like that. So I must get him to hit you up.
Well, you should do. I'm actually moving to Calgary in 4 weeks.
Oh, okay.
From Ontario, but once you get a team, you can't change, can you?
Yeah, absolutely. He's obsessed. He's probably the most obsessed Irish man I know who's into ice hockey. He's just enthralled by the Calgary Flames. He loves Bret Hart from the wrestling, anything to do with Calgary. He just loves, he's just crazy. But he told me to mention that he'd love to have you on, obviously, Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, you can fill his boots. I watched the Leafs every game as well. It's it's only a 50-odd game season this year, but it's usually 80. They play every 2 or 3 days, so you're not short of. You don't have to wait a week or like 2 weeks when it's international.
Yeah. Ice hockey is a different breed of fan as well, isn't it? Because I see some of the fans he has on the show, and their houses look more like bars. They're just decked out with memorabilia, just like, booze, memorabilia, and just like ice hockey fans seem to be absolutely crazy from the outside looking in.
Yeah, they I mean they certainly like it, but I mean my wife's a big Maple Leafs fan as well. I can't wait till all this is over and I can take her to the stadium. I like to show her a real atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as always, listen, it's been a pleasure, Darren. Thanks a million for taking the time for coming on. As always, head over to YouTube, Dynamo Podcast Network, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, and also on Anchor for audio versions. This has been our episode with Darren Wearmouth, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Darren, we shall talk to you again. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure as well.
Cheers.